Sketch to Stretch Literacy Strategy Presentation. Sketch to Stretch is a strategy that encourages students to visualize text and then interpret the concept by drawing it. It allows students to make connections between text and their real-life experiences. There are 6 basic steps to follow when doing Sketch to Stretch. Step 1, read a story and respond to the story with a grand conversation by having the students write 2 quick sentences about the story. Then the students get into small groups with their quick writes and discuss the story. Step 2, discuss the themes of the story by talking about them as a whole class. Remind the students there are many different ways to represent the meaning of the story by using symbols, lines, colors, shapes, and words to visually express what the story means to them. Then discuss the meanings of their thoughts. Step 3, draw the sketches in small groups with every student drawing their own picture. Remind the students to focus on the meaning of the story and not one specific part of the story. That's typically what a student will do, is actually focus on their favorite part of the story. But as you walk around the room, you need to be discussing with the students and asking them things like what colors go with the story in their head, and making sure that they're getting the full entire meaning of the actual story. Step 4, share the sketches with the group and talk about the symbols they used. If they use circles, ask them why they use circles. Or if they drew lines or if they used a specific color, ask them why they're doing that. Ask them what meaning it has that's tied back to the story. Encourage the students to look at the other students' drawings in their group to tell them and try to tell what the other students are trying to convey. Step 5, share sketches with the class by having each group decide on one drawing from the group to share. Step 6, revise sketches and make final sketches after reviewing other sketches from the classroom. The feedback of other students will give students ideas that they may want to change in their drawings for the final copy to be displayed. One article that I discovered while learning about Sketch to Stretch reading strategy was called Reading into Literacy Circles Through the Sketch to Stretch Strategy. The author of this article, Phyllis Witten, discussed how beginning the school year with a sketch to stretch activity starts the year off on a positive note. Her thoughts were, by using the sketch to stretch activity, students draw what the story means to them regardless of their reading level. Starting the school year off with an activity that all students can participate in will make them proud of their work and will encourage them to want to learn more. Students will not be discouraged in reading after having a positive start and will willingly participate in future activities. I do like how the teacher in the article explained the activity of sketch to stretch to the students by telling them when they sketch, they are talking about their sketches, and when they are stretching their minds to think in new and different ways. The article itself confirmed what the strategies book reported about working in small groups during sketching time. In the article, Phyllis Witten said she originally thought that the drawing time was the private time for the students to actually get their pictures in their head down on their paper, but eventually she saw the opportunity to provoke discussions about what the meaning of the book was and to share ideas about what to draw, so she found out that a group time was more beneficial when they were sketching. Another article that I discovered about Sketch to Stretch talked about Israel's journey using Sketch to Stretch to make meaning with literature. In this article by Judith Kova Kelly and Cheryl Yoakum, it talks about a student that had a learning disability with writing expression, writing mechanics, and syntax. And during the literature study that the student was working on, he would do the work, he would never protest, but he would never volunteer. But when he was given the chance to sketch to stretch the meaning of the story that they were reading, he blossomed. In the article it mentioned that he sketched, wrote about his sketches, and even volunteered to tell the class about his assignments. I believe the sketch to stretch activity is another way to reach students who may not be the best writers, but may be able to show learning and understanding expressions by drawing. Just because a student has difficulty expressing their thoughts in writing doesn't mean they should not have the chance to use a different method to express their thoughts. Sketch to stretch is a perfect example of how this strategy helped this one student. Now we're going to learn more about the strategy and how to use it. Sketch to stretch is being able to visualize what you are listening to and coming up with a picture of what you are listening to in your mind. Visualizing is the key word, and it means to understand what you are reading by creating a picture in your mind. If you can see in your mind what you're reading, you have a better chance of understanding what's going on in the book. So when you're visualizing with a picture in your mind and sketching what you are thinking about, you are beginning to understand more about the story. It makes the story more concrete in your mind. An example is that to visualize, you must use the text of a story and make a movie playing in your mind of what is happening in the story. Now let's try this. I'm going to give about 10 seconds, but visualize puppies playing in a yard. What image do you see in your mind? Everyone should have a pretty good idea of what they see in their mind when you're thinking about puppies playing in a yard. This next picture, did your picture in your mind look like this? How was your visualizing different than the one on the screen? Probably not much different. You must use your prior knowledge to be able to come up with a picture in your mind. For example, everyone has probably seen or played with a puppy before. Everyone has probably been in a yard and knows a yard might have grass, weeds, flowers, dirt, and green. So those are two very common things that you can access your prior knowledge on. Even though the pictures in your minds might be slightly different, they all have dogs and a yard in them. The dogs might be different breeds of dogs, but they're a dog. Or the yard might have different things in it, like a fence or maybe a house or a shed or a garden. But everyone can understand what a dog in a yard is. Now we are going to sketch to stretch a poem. As you listen to the teacher reading a poem, you can visualize in your mind. This is going back again to thinking and having a picture in your mind of what you're hearing. The pictures that come into your mind as you listen to the story are what you can sketch on paper to understand the story better. We are going to visualize what is happening in a poem. As I read the following poem to you, think about what comes to your mind. Stars and stripes. Wave the flag, as we march around. Hold it high to show our pride, don't let it touch the ground. Wave the flag, dear red, white, and blue. Stars and stripes forever bright, America here's to you. Now, visualize about what you heard in the poem. What is the meaning of this poem? What does it mean to you? These are all good questions to ask yourself to figure out what kind of mental image you are visualizing in your mind in order to be able to sketch it on paper. Did your vision look something like the one shown to the right? When you were thinking about what was being read to you, what were you visualizing? Were you thinking about the subject of the poem? Were you thinking about where the poem takes place? Were you thinking about the bright colors that were mentioned in the poem? Were you thinking about the main theme of the poem, possibly being patriotic or about the American flag? As I was listening to this poem for the first time, the pictures going through my mind were of a child waving a flag high above his head, and the bright red, white, and blue flag waving in a parade. This is what I was visualizing. The picture to the right is what I was visualizing in my mind, a child marching in a parade holding a flag high above his head. How to use sketch to stretch in the classroom. Now we are going to use sketch to stretch to talk about a book. Harold and the Purple Crayon is a very good way to introduce the strategy of sketch to stretch into the classroom. It gives the students the ability to be creative, and just like Harold in the book was imaginative, it gives the students a chance to be the same way. For the Harold and the Purple Crayon lesson, the first thing to do is read the story Harold and the Purple Crayon. And as the story is read, have the students visualize. That means think about in their mind what they're seeing or what they're hearing in the story, what is going on in the story. Have them think about what they would draw if they were Harold with a purple crayon in hand. This is the time that they are thinking as they're listening to the story being read out loud. When the story is over, give each student a white piece of paper and a purple crayon. Have them divide into small groups and ask them to sketch the meaning of the book, Harold and the Purple Crayon. Ask them, what does the story about Harold mean to them, and how can they put that from thoughts and pictures in their mind down onto their paper with their purple crayon. Encourage discussion between the students in the small groups about what they were drawing, and encourage the students to offer suggestions to each other while drawing. When the students are finished, have them display their drawings in their small groups, and this is when they decide which drawing is to be presented to the whole class. After the small groups present their chosen drawings, give them time to revise and redraw back in their small groups or individually anything they feel necessary on their own drawings before they're displaying them for everyone to see. Having the chance to see others and having the chance to get feedback from your small group gives everyone an opportunity to have a better understanding or a better meaning of the story. Now, this is a sketch to stretch drawing created by my very own second grader, Elena. We read the story Harold and the Purple Crayon and discussed what Harold did in the story. We then started sketching our ideas, and when I asked her what she was drawing, she said she was making her own walk like Harold did in the book. She was walking around her very own Disney World. Granted, she's never been to Disney World, so she has no idea what it looks like, but this is what she is envisioning that it looks like. She has created a princess castle, a shell roller coaster ride, and Ariel. After observing my second grader participating in Sketch to Stretch, I observed her being excited to create her own sketches with her purple crayon, and I was also surprised that she was very verbal about her sketches while making them. Usually she's a very quiet person when she's doing art or when she's drawing, but my second grader, she was happy to share everything about her sketches, even the way the shell roller coaster works. She explained that you start out on the left side of the roller coaster and then you go zooming around in circles like a shell until you get to the middle, and then you stop and you go all the way back. So she was very excited to explain everything there was about her sketching, and I could tell she was proud of her sketches when she was finished. Okay, different ways to use Sketch to Stretch. As a pre-reading activity, Sketch to Stretch can help students connect with their prior knowledge when they know they're getting ready to read about something. So if students can sketch ideas that show what they know about a topic featured in an upcoming selection, so maybe if they do a quick picture walk, or maybe if they are shown the cover of a book that they're getting ready to read, they can figure out what it's about by accessing their prior knowledge and sketching before the story and then sketching after the story. You can also invite students to write captions for the sketches after they are finished. If you notice back in the picture that my daughter drew, she wrote a caption after she was done because I wasn't quite sure who the person was, but she had to tell me it was Ariel. And then when students work in small groups, Sketch to Stretch can be used to illustrate a series of events. For example, each person in a group can sketch a different phase of a life cycle. They can work together in a small group and they can each contribute to one massive picture as a final product. In conclusion, Sketch to Stretch helps students come away with a deeper meaning for literature. So many students see reading as simple words in a book, and Sketch to Stretch brings the words in the book alive with their own imagination and creativity.